What's up, everyone? So in today's video, I'm going to show you guys how we did over $91,000 in 30 days on one single offer. As you can see right here, right? This is what we did. So we did 91,000 in 30 days, just one offer, right? And multiple different offers for one single person. This is a screenshot of a payment that we had over $7,500 USD paid through crypto. Unfortunately, I don't have the full screenshot, so you just have to take my word for it, and hopefully you guys believe me. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I just want to show you guys exactly what we did and how the entire process works, right? How the entire process worked. And essentially, I'm going to break down the exact circumstances that we went through, the lead generation methods that we did, the offer and funnel that we ran, why it actually worked, and how we could have 2x and 3x our revenue. I really want to stay to the end because this is actually quite interesting, and with what I say and what is actually going to be revealed with how this entire process works. Because personally, I don't think many other people could replicate what we did, and it's not because they aren't as good of a marketer, because there's many people that could do what I could do as well. So anyway, let me just jump right into it. So just a bit of proof. Sorry, I don't have the screenshot there. So I'm just gonna move that one out the way. So I'm gonna go through the circumstances first of what we actually had to go through when we made that $91,000 in that 30-day period, right? So pretty much right here. So first here, this was a straight organic traffic. It was all from organic traffic. Sorry, it wasn't any paid traffic. It wasn't from anything else. It wasn't any referrals, right? It was straight organic traffic, maybe a bit of referrals, but mainly organic traffic. So we were able. I personally don't think you would be able to make $91,000 in 30 days from ads unless it's obviously like straight off the bat on your first month. Like you can potentially do it, but it's very very hard, right? Another circumstance with it is there was a little cash actually left on the table when we ran this. That's why I also put here how we could potentially 2x or even 3x that revenue there. The closes that we had, this is very important for you guys to realize. The closes that we actually had on this specific offer, right? They had already closed over $3 to $6 million on offers collectively. They were very, very experienced closes, like very experienced closes. So this is really important later on, right? When I explain the offer and how they actually did the closing. There was no designated setup besides the offer owner and the closers actually reaching out for like pre-call. It was a very strong personal brand. Again, that's another important thing that you have to realize and contributed to a lot to making this amount, right? And the offer itself was 3K to 7.5K, or about around there. So that was essentially the circumstances that we actually worked with. And it wasn't really that hard, to be honest, because of this point right here, this strong personal brand. So let me go. I'm not saying that to sound like douchey, but I genuinely believe like the stronger the personal brand is, the easier it is to kind of run the entire thing, right? That's why some people, like for programs, people are really selective with the people they let in because they want to make sure their success rate is really, really high. And if they just let everyone in, not everyone's going to win because there is a standard to it. That's the same with this personal brand, right? And for me personally, with my point of view as an operator, the person that's running the offer owner matters a lot as well, and the offer itself. So that was just a little rant. So let me go into the lead generation now. So how I actually did our lead generation, getting leads into the funnel itself before I go into the actual funnel. So essentially, we did three main ways. So it was Instagram Reels, showing and selling the lifestyle, Instagram stories and sequences, YouTube videos with the links in the description, right? So that would be like the video there, and then just the description there with the CTA right there. So that's pretty much how it was for YouTube, right? So with the Instagram Reels, it was pretty much just pushing, usually either to the bio, right? The bio was just a big one because this dude is still popping off insanely. I unfortunately can't say who it is, but also a DM, right? So those were with the Instagram Reels. With the Instagram Stories, right? This is the usual framework that we follow, right? So it's a hook, story, offer. So you guys know Russell Brunson. We're very familiar with how this entire process works. And essentially the way that we kind of ran the stories, right, it was always a hook story offer sequence, but it could have been a one story, it could have been 3-story sequence, 5 stories, 7 stories. Like for what I mean by that is, for example, the hook could have been just 2 stories, the story could have been 3 stories, and then the offer could have been 5. So that the offer could have been 2 stories, and that would have been like a 7-story sequence, right? So that's actually what I mean. Same with 5, same with 3, and then 1. Obviously, just have the entire text on there with a call to action, right? So how it actually works, the hook story offer. So the hook, you always hook with a pain or a problem. That's the easiest way that you can hook the lead because you resonate with them. You talk to them directly. You talk directly to their pain. The story, you give them a relatable story or situation that they can relate to, and they'll be like, oh, this person understands me, knows what I'm going through, right? This essentially allows them to keep reading on because they feel heard. So you already called them out here. Now they feel heard here, and then you go into the offer to kind of actually give the solution, all right, to the pain and problem that you kind of introduce here, agitated in this story here, and then the offer to fix it. So the call to action could literally be DM, swipe up. I'm just giving general ones here, by the way. Usually we just run usually like DMs or swipe ups, right? But the call to action here it could be DM, swipe up, link. It could be just a link, right, or a keyword, even a YouTube video. So that's pretty much how we ran the lead generation on the organic side. Most of the times, that's how we run it anyway, depending on where their kind of traffic source is. So if they were bigger on X, it'd be a bit different. As an example, if it was LinkedIn, strategy would be different as well. But that's kind of the basis of it, especially on Instagram. Really simple, have that down to a pat. Now, the offer and funnel that we actually ran was quite simple. It was just basically not even a VSL, it was just the straight to account lead, to be honest. It was really, really fun. But before I go into the actual funnel itself, let me explain the offer, right? So I know this looks a bit confusing, so let me just kind of segregate it a little. So just move that. That's the funnel itself there. So let me explain this here. So the target audience that we were specifically targeting for this offer, and you have to realize why this was widely successful because of the target audience that we were targeting. So the ICP was successful people, or people want to be successful, and on that trajectory as well. So these were 6, 7, and 8-figure entrepreneurs. So these were financially qualified people, right? Now, the offer itself was a brotherhood and a network for successful entrepreneurs or successful people in certain areas of life who feel like they haven't hit their full potential in other areas of life, right? So, for example, if they were successful in health or they had a huge following, right, but they weren't really as financially successful, then they would join the brotherhood for this, right? So there was it was just basically a self-improvement offer, but I'll go into a bit more of that. But essentially, this led it to be a very high income demographic and target audience that we were kind of selling to, but also high quality because these people were serious, right? That's when you're running offer, that's the number one thing that you want to check. First off, obviously, can they afford it? But secondly, are these people high quality where if they join my program, are they actually going to be able to get results? Because results equals more clients. And what I mean by that is it just builds more trust, right? It builds more reciprocity within the community. They see one person successful, everyone else wants to try and get successful as well. So that was pretty much the offer here. So it was a very, very strong offer of very high quality people, right? This is partly why the offer itself, I have no kind of input in the offer and ran that completely themselves, so I can't really say anything. The structure of the offer and the people that's targeting is very well put together, right? So the product's very good. So the main selling points of this specific offer was the brotherhood, the network, and self-improvement, right? So this was a brotherhood of pretty much made up of 6, 7, 8-figure entrepreneurs. It's very hard to find a congregated network of those types of people together. And for someone that's already successful, who's stuck at 6 figures, they want to go to 7 figures. If they could if there was already a place where they would only have to pay 3,000, 7,500, 10 grand to be able to get in front of those 7 to 8-figure entrepreneurs with a already good frame because they're in the same brotherhood as them, then it's a very small price to pay to actually increase the income. So that was actually a very big selling point. But it wasn't just business and money that the offer was able to help them in, right? So it was self-improvement, like I said, so it was helping in dating, right? A lot of successful entrepreneurs struggle with their dating life, business, so to improve their business, or maybe they're struggling with the business, travel and location, right? So they had a lot of in-person meetups, things like that. People lived a lot together, in like Bali, Bangkok, I can't really remember where it was. Dubai as well, I think. I'm not 100% sure. Networking, connecting, so pretty much similar to what I just said, right? The network was a huge selling point because it's very hard to find a bunch of 7 and 8 figures come together, right? And health and wellness, so fitness as well. So that was another thing as well. So all these together just really brings up a strong offer stack, and then the personal brand of this person just kind of tied it all together. Now, most men had their financial side locked in, but not as much in the other areas of their life, or they felt as if they had already hit a ceiling and needed to be surrounded by bigger people to prove that themselves, but also their income. I spelled that wrong. So essentially, one of the big sell points was, right, because it was a very successful people here. If you've heard the saying, right, you're the product of the five most often people you surround yourself with, right? If you are the most successful people, right, in your friend group, so there's 5 of you here, so you're the most successful person in your friend group, you're going to be the one bringing those people up and they're bringing you down. So basically, you're the person that's the ceiling. You're the ceiling. So you're never going to be able to grow further and further if you are the ceiling, right? But essentially, the brotherhood was kind of getting rid of this and giving them an opportunity to be surrounded by bigger people, where you would be the person that's smaller, and then there'd be a new ceiling for you, right? So that's essentially what was offered, and it's a very strong selling point, especially in this online business game. It's actually a very lonely game and hard to find people that are kind of aligned with what you do. So this was a selling point as well to it, just having that congregation and that group of people who are like you, right? So again, it was an offer. It was online offer, offline offer. It had in-person meetups, one-to-one coaching, things like that, right? Now, here's where the closes really came in. So the closes itself, like I told you, they had already closed 3 to 6 million collectively, right? Both of them. So one of them now is like my sales manager, but at the time, both of them had already closed millions of dollars online, right? So the closes had to be dialed in, experienced, and trained, as the problem and the desire per call varied immensely, right? So, like you see here, there's dating problems, there's the dating, business, travel and location, network, health and wellness. So there's a bunch of different problems that they have to kind of be aware of, right? And the only way that you're going to be able to handle all these objections, questions specific to your offer on this, right, is if you're experienced and you just know what you're doing. I'm personally myself, I'm not a good closer. I'm not good at one-to-one sales, but these guys were absolutely dialed in. They knew what what they were doing, right? So they were. This just made it much easier, right? If I was to kind of explain it, it was just way easier for us to actually sell this because we had good closes, right? If your closes, if you have amazing leads but your closes suck, that is the worst bottleneck to have because you're losing leads because there's a very, how do I explain this? This is a very easy bottleneck to fix. You can just get a good closer in. If you have a good network and you know good people, you can get a good closer in. You could literally increase your closing rate so much by just changing around the closer, right? Now this is the actual funnel that we ran. So like I showed you, the traffic was Instagram Reels, Instagram Stories and Sequences, YouTube videos, links in the description, right? And it was straight to a Calendly. There was no VSL. So right here, we lost already potentially money because this would turn away people. People come in. There would be no reason or kind of sales asset to kind of convince him to actually book a call. So they would just turn back around and look at his content, right? And then this would increase sales cycle, right? And also it would make the sales calls much harder because they weren't pre-framed properly, right? Now the sales process itself, I didn't actually put the sales process here, unfortunately, but the sales process itself was literally just notification emails and the meeting link, right? Like the Calendly standard notification emails, which isn't ideal because there's no sales assets, no pre-call, there's no process to actually warm them up. They just show up on the call, and this is a big reason that this is why the closes had to be absolutely dialed in, because if they weren't, we would have made significantly, and I mean significantly less money, right? Now the funnel itself is pretty simple, similar to all other funnels, right? When you run a high ticket funnel, check if they're qualified based off their information and choices. If they're qualified, book them in for a call, close, no close, and then put them in a nurture sequence. If they're unqualified, obviously cancel the call, and then you could either downsell them. Ideally, you want to downsell them if you do have a downsell, um, or you just put them back to your content. You just want to keep them in your ecosystem at all times. Never want to lose the lead, right? So that was pretty much the offer and the funnel that we ran. Now, the final part is actually me telling you why it worked, and then obviously going into how we could have actually 2x or potentially even 3x our income and revenue that we actually brought in. So, why it worked, right? And it's really only one thing, or there was one main thing, but let me tell you a couple of the other reasons. So, first off, there was a very strong personal brand, and when I say very strong, it was like strong. It was the personal brand when it came to this niche. It was one of the top ones, right? So it was a very strong personal brand that was aligned with the offer of brotherhood and self-improvement. Another reason that it worked really well was it showed the lifestyle. So in the content, it was a really selling of the lifestyle kind of thing, but also educating them. It wasn't just like those brain rot kind of content where you know those ones where it's literally just Ferraris, Lambos. It wasn't that kind of thing. It was like selling the lifestyle that a 6 to 7 to 8 kind of entrepreneur would like. It was a very much more professional kind of selling the lifestyle, right? It also painted the dream outcome, same kind of thing. It was in a more professional way, not a brain rot, but a raw and professional way. It hit the right desires, so improvement in finances, health, women, and relationships, and that was also conveyed through the content, right? So it was very aligned, his content offer and the actual sales call. It was very aligned with what he did, right? Now, the number one reason that it really worked, besides the really good sales closes, besides the pretty okay marketing, right? The number one reason why it worked, I have to be honest with this, the only reason it works so well, and we still would have made a bunch of money. The only reason it really worked well is because of these two words, this personal brand, right? Straight up, we could have copied everything in strategy, offer, funnel for a different personal brand, and if it wasn't anywhere near equivalent, it would have flopped. Well, not flopped, but it would have made nowhere near as much money. Because you have to recognize this was nearly $100,000 in 30 days. First, like a new offer, right? That's absolutely insane. Well, it was a new offer, it was like a relaunch of the offer. That's insane. So, a very strong personal brand, a very strong network, right? And very good referrals because this person was in the circle. He was congregating the circle of 6 to 7 figure entrepreneurs. So the referrals were crazy. People were like shouting them out, things like that, right? It would just build the trust up with people. Now, how could we have 2x or 3x that revenue? And it was really by implementing some simple things that we already do in our office now to this day, right? Besides putting more in marketing efforts in terms of actually investing ads, a few couple of things that we could have actually done to actually increase the money without really changing anything beside in the lead gen or the marketing side, right? Is add dedicated setters to push through DM funnel, right? And the reason for this is because we've seen through the data that we've ran that it's shown to have a higher show up rate when leads are pushed through the DM funnel instead of having them to book it themselves, right? It's just because you've already had that direct one-to-one contact with them, and we've just found that it actually does just produce a higher show-up rate, right? There's reasons behind it. I just can't think of it right now. Now, if we would not change the offer, even though people say be niche specific, be a niche within a niche, right? Within a niche, I would not change the offer because it worked. It clearly worked and had product audience fit and product market fit. If something works, this is one thing I don't get with people, and this is something I still do and try to kind of slap myself when I do it, right? If something clearly works, why are you changing it up? Because whenever you try to change it up, shit just doesn't work as well. Like maybe every 1 in a million, it will work a little bit better, but is it really worth the effort? Like the potential lost cash, right? Like this isn't a real statistic, but I bet you 1 out of 10 times every time you change something, it's not going to work, right? Like if it's going to be a significant change, so there would be no reason for us to change the offer. People would say like, oh no, it wasn't. It was self improvement. It was such a broad niche. There's a lot of competitions. Like so, it worked. It clearly worked. If something works, why change it, right? Another thing that I would do and add as well is implement a proper pre-call flow and sales assets. So these would be like education videos, a little bit more information. So let's say after they book a call, there would be like a post-booking video for call hygiene, and then another video which would be an education video to kind of educate them on the program and the offer itself, right? To improve the sales process. So this would be more kind of be more on board. I mean, these closers were already good with it, but really track the kind of speed to lead with, let's say, a lead comes in DMs, right? How fast we go to DMs, pretty much everything. Just improve the entire process. The closing, like probably add more closes potentially as well. And also the last thing, I think this would have created a really big difference, is create a 2 to 7 minute VSL, direct VSL, like just straight up a direct offer, because his trust in the market was already really, really high, still is, right? So we could have just create a 2 to 7 minute direct VSL. Also, his ICP is entrepreneurs, so they don't like any BS and their time is busy and they're a fluent audience, so you don't have to really do anything. But create a 2 to 7 minute direct VSL and and booking page instead of a straight to Calendly, right? Again, this just really frames the leads in a right way before they book a call, and also lets them really know what they're actually booking in for. So that is pretty much the entire process of how we would have potentially 2x, 3x our revenue. Just this first one alone, definitely, I believe, would have got us to like 180K. Like, easily, if we added setters, because the amount of volume this guy's currently getting and also was getting back then was an insane amount, right? Yeah, you have no idea how much volume and leads just come through this person's personal brand. But that was pretty much it. That's how we could have 2x, 3x our revenue, why it worked, the offer and funnel, lead generation, and the circumstances that we went through. A little bit of proof there. Wish I had more. Sorry about that. But if you guys need any help with anything related to this, info products, info companies, right, getting to 6 to 7 figures, just let me know. You can check the first link in description. And pretty much, if you guys need, like I said, if you need any help, just let me know. And I hope you guys learned from my mistakes, and any value, you can DM me. Any questions or anything, you can DM me on Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to answer it. Cheers for watching the video. Peace.